good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get the presentation started. My name's Torrey Proctor, and I teach STEM at Spencer Community School District. I teach kinder kids, which is transitional kindergarten, and I have kindergarten through 5th grade, and that's at 3 buildings, Johnson, Fairview, and Lincoln. And then I'm also one of the co-founders here at TechKnow. And this month's presentation is on STEM and NASA. And the reason it's on STEM and NASA is I got to go down to Huntsville, Alabama, and see some of their NASA things that they have down there. And I was part of a grant. I teamed up with 4-H. 4-H invited me to team up with them and to send some teachers down there. So it was myself and some other teachers, some 4-H people, some teachers from Storm Lake. And then they flew us down on a Wednesday, and then we spent all day Thursday with an educator that teaches educators about NASA and how to teach students about NASA. And then on Friday, we got to take lots of tours and do the museum trip and have a museum day. And we also got to spend about 2 hours with an actual astronaut that flew on a previous mission and then flew back Saturday. So part of me getting to go on this trip is that I had to write a grant and come up with a plan on how I would share my experience with my students in my community and fellow teachers. So my plan was that I would have lessons. Each grade that I teach would have a NASA lesson. And that I would also present this to TechKnow, the monthly meetup, which is tonight, so the community can get a chance to hear if they'd like, either here in person or on YouTube. And then my other part of the plan was to go and share NASA lessons with teachers at the TICL conference, which is a technology integration conference for educators in Storm Lake over the summer. And so that was my plan, and I was lucky to win the grant. Anyone that applied didn't get it, is what I found out. There was, I think the number like 20 people applied, and I think like 10 people got to go, so feeling really fortunate. And I took full advantage of the trip. I went down to Alabama and I ate grits. I ate all the local cuisine. So if there's anybody that wants to team up with me more grants, I will go and fully immerse myself in the culture, and I will eat their food. I won't be snooty about that. But it's kind of hard to do this presentation because it'd be easier just to have one focus. But I went there and I've got bombarded with all sorts of cool NASA stuff I can teach my students. So it's going to be kind of a juxtapose of lots of different things that I'm learning and still learning so I can teach my kids. About a month ago, I didn't know anything about NASA, and now I know a lot more, but from here, I'm still going to learn a lot more so I can teach my kids about it. So I guess one of the things that I'm going to start with was a really cool tool. It's called NASA's Eyes, and it's software that you can download for free. And once it opens up, this is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California made this. And there's a solar eclipse coming up this summer. And this software actually shows you when the solar eclipse is going to pass over your area. So you need your latitude and longitudinal lines. So I'm going to get latitude and longitude real quick, just by a Google search. And we'll pick this spot right here at TechKnow for our latitude and longitude. Whoop. So I'll zoom in. So something you can do for a summer activity. Right now I'm just zooming in on the map looking for Spencer. There's Spencer. You can put a pin on it by left clicking. I'm looking for Stolly's Pond. There's the airport. Alrighty. I'm seeing TechKnow. So there we are. Looks like John's truck is parked out front. I don't know if that's, or it looks Matt's. I don't know if that's John or Aaron. We'll pin right here. If you're going to watch it and you're out in the parking lot, that's our latitude and longitude. So you can just copy and paste it from up here. Here's my latitude. I'll copy it. And then I'll go back in the Eyes on NASA software and paste it in. You have to go down to custom. And I'll paste in the latitude. And then grab the longitude. And then click apply. And so it's going to be August 21st that you can see this eclipse. And it's traveling pretty fast. This is not normal speed, but you can control the speed that this works. So at the exact time, let's zoom in to where we're at. We're going to have a partial eclipse. We're not going to be a total. So this is what it's going to look like on the right. We're going to see a little bit of sun at the top. And that's going to happen at about 1:04 in the afternoon. So that's when you can see the eclipse. And I'll go back so you can see the moons. If you wanted to see a total eclipse, you'd have to be down near Kansas City to see the total eclipse. This is darker band. It's kind of hard to see with the lights. But so that's how you can watch, or when you watch the total eclipse. You're going to need some special glasses, or you can do a pinhole camera. And with the special glasses, you can just look directly at the sun without having those harmful effects that you get any other time that you look at the sun. So this is one of the things I learned. And these are what the glasses look like. And you can look right at the eclipse and have no problems. Another really cool thing that the software does that I have yet to show my students, but you'll get to see it tonight, is part of NASA's mission is not just to get us to space and to travel far and explore, but also to look down, to be up in space and look down on Earth and use all sorts of technology to study our own planet. So I'll go back to the Eyes on NASA. And another cool part of the software is you can look at our own planet, not just other solar systems. And shortly we'll be putting on our 3D goggles or glasses. Loading. There we go. So all those things that are flying around, I'll turn off the lights really quick. Our satellites. And this is real time. This kind of blew my mind. I didn't know that you can, for free, grab software online and track what's really happening out in space. So you can go to missions at the top right corner, and we can go look at the International Space Station, ISS. And it doesn't seem to be on our side of the planet. It's out in the ocean right now. And then you can click real time. It doesn't look like much in this view, but we can click on it and zoom in and see what the ISS looks like. It's a 3D model. It's not actual live feed, but it's actual live GPS coordinates. It doesn't look very interesting, but I can go back and change the time and travel back so we're passing over some Earth. And it makes it a lot more interesting to look at. This is where we can use our 3D goggles. When I go up to the top right corner, there's a button you can click and click on 3D. It's not like virtual reality, but you're going to feel that it's not totally flat. So there's the International Space Station. And the effect works better if you zoom in real close to the solar panels. Now this isn't the only thing that you can see that's happening. There's a list, and it looks like just by glance there's like 15 or so satellites that are out there right now. You can click on any one of these and you can see its current location. And then if you're not sure what the satellite looks like, you can double click on it to get a close-up view. And there's all sorts of different kinds of satellites doing different kinds of observations of our globe, our planet. So I'm going to back out of the 3D view quick. And some of the other things you can do, here's a visible Earth. Not realistic because most of the time the Earth is covered in clouds, but you can look at global temperature and carbon dioxide. There's all sorts of different settings. Sea level, and this is a pretty interesting 3D view. It's raised where the sea is at, and when there's land masses, it's just black. Soil moisture, and so on. If someone were to get the software and just play with it, you would learn just a whole lot of stuff. So that's one of the favorite things that I learned down there, and that I'd like to share. There's also a NASA Kids website. I just want to share a couple things from that. They have an Astromatic 3000, and that you can find out how much you weigh on other planets. So I'm 38. So you plug in your age and weight, about 200. And so weight, so you can check out all the different planets. Oh, and the educators, they didn't say Uranus, they said Uranus. That's what they spoke at NASA. So from now on, I'm going to say Uranus, and you don't have to have any students giggle anymore. The joke is over. Uranus is how they pronounce it at NASA. So on Uranus, I'd weigh like 180 pounds. But there's some crazy ones in here, 76 pounds on Mercury, and so on. That's just a fun little tool that teaches you about how it's different on each planet with gravity. Let's do age real quick. So I'd be 3 years old if I lived on Jupiter. Some planets have longer rotations, a seasonal rotation, and some of them have shorter ones. So this is another website that I thought was fun. The best thing I've gotten out of this, that's real cool tech to share and show, but I've done some projects with the students already, and they were NASA engineering design projects. And in all 3 grade levels that I've done these with, I had teams of 4. So in the first video I'm going to show you, it was 4th grade, and they were making lunar landers. When you land on a planet like the moon or hopefully Mars someday, you can't come crashing into the planet. You're going to damage some stuff. So they had to figure out how to slow down the descent of their ship, and then how to create a shock-absorbing system. And they were given 3 note cards, a cup, 8 straws, and mini marshmallows for the shock-absorbing system. And then they had to put 2 astronauts in the cup, and those were regular jumbo-sized marshmallows. And the trick was that you couldn't have the astronauts pop out of the cup. And some kids were like, well, I can build a seatbelt and then keep them in there. Well, part of the game was that you couldn't build anything inside the cup with the astronauts, and you couldn't build a cage over top of it. You had to build everything below the lip of the cup. And the kids absolutely loved the design challenge. We did 2 trials. We would drop the cup at 11 inches. If you got that far, and that's the size of a piece of paper, then you get to go on to the second test round, which would be 22 inches. You double that. And then 33 inches. So we did trial 1 where everyone did it. No one usually does great. And then we do trial 2 where everyone's improved and they had to re-engineer their lunar lander. So here's some of the videos of our tests, of our trials. So yeah, lots of astronauts there. Oh, and the kids got really smart. Oh, if I squish my astronauts together in the cup, they ain't gonna pop out. And I just was like, how do the astronauts feel about that? You know, that's cheating. Not for this project. What did we lose the first one? I gave her a rebate because poor technique. She was dropping it sideways. Oh, man.
This is our best.
That was the best design of that class. I'll show you one more. Kids absolutely love the competition of engineering and having time constraint in doing so. We did this in one class, a 50-minute class. Oh, I do have another video where I went up to 44 inches. And so they got up on a chair and they dropped it further down. That was one of the projects we did, Lunar Landers. Another project we did was we had to make a rover, a buggy. And I showed them videos of a buggy from space, a moon buggy, actual video footage of when they landed on the moon. So they got to see a real one. And then I told them you can't have pressurized tires in space. I always assumed that they had rubber tires on those buggies, but they'll pop. So they have metal tires in space on the rovers. So this challenge, they had to build a rover. I had to carry a payload. This is the kids working on it. And they had to have it roll down a ramp and travel 20 inches. And they couldn't lose the astronauts or have their buggy fall apart or lose the payload. And I told them the payload can be food, it can be building materials, it can be fuel, it can be instruments for doing scientific experiments. So I've got videos of some of these that have failed and some of these that have made it. It looks like I have some of them loading. Oh, might have to come back to that one. But anyway, you can see that there's the plastic egg. In the payload, they had either marbles or pennies, and they would roll down the ramp. So that was the lunar buggy challenge. Another challenge we had to build a rocket and try to hit a target with it. And it was a balloon-powered rocket. Again, they worked in teams of 4. I'll find you one more video there. And then I'll talk about some of the things I learned on the trip real briefly. So they had a smaller straw connected to the balloon. And then there's a bigger straw that fits over top of it. And the end of the straw is capped, either with tape or clay. And then they had to work on the angle and how much inflated they want their balloon to be. That was one of the harder things. 621. I do have another project. I think I'll show this other project. That I need some volunteers for this next project. What? You want to be a volunteer, Dan? I'm gonna need like 6 people, I think, at the least. Can come on up. Yep. All the kids that want to come up, come on up. I might need some adults for this. This is a challenging one.
Is it total war?
This is installation for pipes.
I wish it was.
You're going to make a roller coaster, and what your roller coaster needs to have, you need to have a loop. I'm really going to need a couple adults. Like this is challenging. This is for my upper elementary. This is a 1/2-inch steel ball bearing. So you need to make a loop. You need to have a jump and 2 hills. And that's the engineering design challenge. And you're gonna want to connect. You're gonna want to connect them both. So you're gonna have to work as a team, like the whole group. Like you're gonna have one loop somewhere in here.
Right.
It's one continuous run.
A loop?
Okay.
And a jump?
A loop and a jump, and the jump can just be. The jump is going to be probably here, where the two, you can have them overlap. You need 2 hills, a jump, and then you need the marble to stop at the end, so you would make a slant uphill. It looks pretty horizontal. How are you going to get that bearing across there? They didn't give us. We had to do this as teachers in this workshop, and we got it to work. A couple tips, watch where your thumbs are. If your thumb's pinching or in the way, it'll hit the marble.
We gotta get this lined up just right so it jumps.
Where are we starting? What's their starting
You
in?
wanna start the loop first?
Yeah, I think so. We need so we'll need to go down further down here.
We
Start
gotta
out higher. Well, we have.
We started with the loop, my team, when we did it.
So we need to build speed. So let's go down a little bit with the loop here. There you go.
Okay,
We still need a jump.
let's make that jump.
Uh,
Does that work?
You want to do the jump?
Does that count?
You got 1 hill.
One hill?
You need 2 hills. There you go.
Yeah, sure. That would be worse.
Get some height, okay. We gotta get another hill in here.
You ready to test run? Guys, watch where your fingers are at.
Hey, Rachel, try not to squeeze it. Up. Go higher.
So you got to make some adjustments. I'm afraid it's gonna. There we go. 1 hill.
Okay, let's make this one a little bit lower. Give them more. A little too high.
I haven't even done this one in class yet. I don't know how long it takes. 2 hills.
Oh, I'm almost.
Just
Okay,
a
don't
little
move.
off there.
I'll get that one later.
There it goes.
Did you get the jump?
No, that's where we're messing up.
All right, we'll try.
Yeah, let's get.
Here we go.
Okay.
Ready?
Line that up.
Yes.
All right, you're gonna need a lot more speed for the loop. You might
Aaron,
want to put
hold
the
it up
switch
higher.
and put the
Does it work?
You might want to switch and put the loop over here.
You gonna switch it?
Maybe.
Yep.
We're gonna move. Okay, thank you.
And I'm helping a lot. Like they didn't give us any help at all. And it worked. I have video of ours working. It did the loop first and then did the jump and 2 hills. Thank
Doesn't
you.
matter how big the loop is.
Now there's a whole bunch of lessons you can teach with this, like speed, you need your distance, and
Did you use this stuff?
you need a
material?
timer.
You two do the jump. All right.
We can at least show the crowd we can do the loop-de-loop.
Have a little bit of a jump. Just make sure they line up a little bit.
All right, how's that?
3,
Might want to go a little higher with your end.
1.
Okay, we'll see. Wait until the team's ready.
You
And then
guys ready?
curl the end so the marble stops. I'm giving you all the answers. So it doesn't roll off the end. Ready?
So we need to move that way. Maybe.
Kind of a,
Here.
Thanks.
Hold on, wait. Hold it back.
it's kind of a bendy bend right here.
Ready? Watch the front of yours. Might want to slope this front part, bring it down a little more. I think we'll see.
Nope, so not enough oomph. Did you use this material?
Yep. You have to have a whole lot of speed
Okay,
to get through the
there.
loop.
There.
How's that?
Well, we'll try it one more time and I'll wrap up the presentation. I'll add some more stuff to it and then, all right, last try.
Oh, yes! Yes!
So you can talk about friction and other things with that lesson. That's a good one on collaboration too, because it doesn't work if you don't have the whole team helping. Wow. So I'm back. A little bit of time left. Good. All right. So some of the things I learned while I was there, and these are just some random factoids. Plumbing in space, you can't use PVC because it'll leach toxins and it'll kill all the astronauts. That's something I had no idea. So they have a must-use materials for some things that they build. I guess some of the personal stories when meeting the astronaut, he talked about his experience in space, and he said lots of interesting things. One thing he told us is that it took him 3 days to get used to being in space. And then when he came back down to Earth, it took him about 3 days to get familiar and be comfortable again on Earth. He said that his neighborhood was throwing a party for him when he first got back from one of his missions. And so it was like a day later. And at the party, he dropped his keys. And he just stood there. And his wife told him, well, you need to pick your keys up. And it's just something that didn't click right away because when you're in space, your keys are going to bounce and they're going to slowly float back up. And then this is another story I heard from him and confirmed by another worker at NASA was that one of the astronauts drank from a sippy cup, his coffee, at least for a week after coming back from a space mission. His wife made him do this, and for good reason, because he would take his coffee mug after sipping it and then let go of it. And it hit the ground, so he had that adjustment in space. So, and one of the guys said, I've actually seen the sippy cup. It does exist. Other fun facts I learned, like what color is sunsets and sunrises on Mars? Did I tell you in class? Yeah. What color? Blue. And just crazy stuff like that. So I'm working on putting together lessons, and there's lots more factoids that I have. If you're interested in hearing them, I can share them with you. But I'm working on lessons that teach kids about orbiters and about rovers, a little bit about the history. Engineering is fascinating because a lot of things that get engineered at NASA go on and have a life of their own outside of NASA and improve our lives in many different ways. So I'm going to teach them about that. Growing plants, space food is an interesting topic, and growing plants on the International Space Station. The International Space Station is another thing I'm going to work on teaching the kids about. That's a proving ground. They do a lot of experiments and stuff there to get ready for deep space. And teach them about our current mission. One of the current missions is going to Mars. And the rocket that they're building right now is the biggest rocket ever built in the history of man and woman. So it's the SLS, the Space Launch System. And I thought it was just one rocket, but doing some more and more research, I find that it's actually 2 rockets. They have 2 different versions. They have one rocket that's as tall as the Statue of Liberty, and it carries a little shuttle on top that has astronauts, and that's called Orion. And then there's another rocket that's as tall as 30 stories, and that one carries a payload, a huge payload, and it has a lot more thrust. I can't say a little more thrust because these are the biggest rockets ever built in the world. So when these things happen, when they go down and they start doing more tests in 2018, and they're trying to put people up there in 2021. They even have talks about doing that even sooner, that when these things happen in the current events, these kids are going to be like, oh, I have a little bit of understanding of what's going on. Instead of it just kind of passing over their head, they'll know what's going on with current events when it comes to NASA. That's part of my mission, is basically with itness, what's going on with this technology. And then having these kids do projects in class, not just to do them, but just say, hey, they're going to need some more lunar buggies and people designing them for the other planets that we go visit. And so by the time you guys get done with elementary school and high school and college, you guys can be on the team to design these things. So this is the message that I'm bringing to my students, which is encompasses a lot of things that NASA does. I'm trying to hit a little bit on each. That's it. Any questions? Kind of threw some random stuff at you. No questions? All right. Feel free to, I've got some virtual reality goggles I brought. If you wanted to check out the solar system in VR, you're welcome to try out my virtual reality headset. I've got a bunch of posters that I brought back here, but also in the back. So if you want to check out those posters, those are some tourism posters that also have some interesting facts on the bottom about different planets and things that NASA is studying. So feel free to flip through those and come approach me if you have any questions or if you have something you want to share with me that you know about space. Because this is all new to me and I've got a long ways to go in my learning to learn myself and then to share with my students.
How does NASA work with SpaceX? Did they say that?
The people that I talked to, because I asked, how do you guys feel about that? And they think it's great because there's some collaboration going on, is what they said. I can see some competition, which is competition I think is good. I know that to get to the International Space Station, they're using Russian ships right now. And they're going to discontinue that and use private spaceships. So it would be SpaceX.
Sure.
So that's one plus is like we're using local, buying local, instead of going to the Russians for a hitch to the International Space Station. I asked about our competition. Like I got to sit down and eat lunch with one of the NASA people, the educators, and I was just asking them questions. And I said, who are all the players in space? And he was listing all the countries and what they do. And he says out of all of them, they play nice except China. China doesn't play nice with the US. For example, they don't like to share. They've come out with some technology that, interestingly enough, it looks just like something that NASA came out with. So there might be a little bit of espionage going on. I was told that some of the people that work at NASA, when they go to China, they can't bring laptops, phones, anything. So when they get to China, they get burner phones anytime they have to go to China. And one story they told me in particular is one person didn't bring any technology, came back home, and the NASA people still checked her computer, just to make sure that they didn't, associate her name with the project she does and checked her computer. They've been hacked, was the other story I've been told. And they had a security breach, and so they wiped out a bunch of stuff. They're like, the IT people are like, we got to get rid of all this stuff. And sadly, some of the stuff was education stuff. So the educator was like, we lost a bunch of stuff because, they hacked. And they decided to just delete and swipe everything. So lots of interesting stories like that. China doesn't play nice with us in our space program sharing. Any other questions?
So who are the big private companies?
I haven't studied that. There's a few of them. The SpaceX is the most widely known one that most people know. But see, that'd be something interesting, is to learn all about that and then share that with my students. Here's all the different companies. Something I didn't know. I went down there and I just thought everyone worked for NASA. Mostly it's private contractors. It's huge. In fact, I went and saw a control room. It wasn't Houston. Houston's in Texas. But they have a separate control room in Huntsville, Alabama that just specializes in science experiments. And I got to actually, step behind the glass and watch them like they're at a zoo. But the only person the tour guide was telling me that worked for NASA was the person that answered the phone. If one of the astronauts called down and had a question, she picks up the phone and talks to him, where everyone else in that room was private contractors, which I had no idea. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
What's an astronaut make for salary?
Man, I have no idea.
Did you say that? I was just curious.
And I'm under the impression that the people I meet, the two astronauts that I learned a lot about, and the one person I met, they were test pilots. And you got to think, like, if you're a test pilot, you're already pretty brave and pretty crazy. So super brave in their contribution. So I thanked him for his service. The astronaut that I met, you know, was in Vietnam, was a test pilot, did 2 NASA missions, and then had to wait 3 years to do the next mission, and he decided not to. And he got a phone call, would you like to be a general? So he ended up being a general. Interesting people. In fact, the guy, how he got picked to be an astronaut, it was really strange because he said he never had a face-to-face meeting. And it started with a big application pool of thousands of people, and it just kept getting narrower and narrower. And then they finally picked him without meeting anybody. Until like, I guess it was like until the like final 10 or 20, and then they actually had a face-to-face meeting. And they looked at his grades all the way back to high school is what they told him. And this was like, this was the astronaut that I met, Bob. And his last name's escaping me, Robert. I can't think of it. Whew. Any other questions? I'll try to answer and spin off on a different tangent.
This grant that you were part of, is it something they do annually, or is this like a once?
It's annually. Yeah, it's the Iowa Space Grant Consortium. I think that's the official name for it. And I think what helped our group is that we pulled a bunch of people together from different, 4-H public schools, and not just Spencer, but Storm Lake. So I think that helped our chances a bit. So if you're an educator, this is a sweet trip. Totally worth. I have so many resources that it's taken me a while to get through them, and it'll be a continuing learning process, digging through these resources and sharing them. Any other? Hey, thanks.